This declassified CIA document from the 50s was released along with the JFK files, I believe, and it claims that Hitler didn't die in 1945, but instead he fled to Colombia in South America, and supposedly some former SS agent Philippe Citroën, sounds French, he was in touch with Hitler when he was in the city of Tunja in Colombia, or Tunja, or however you pronounce it. And there's even this fucking ads, this picture with Hitler here on the right, and on the left is Citroën, I guess. And well, the guy in the picture certainly looks like Hitler. But he, of course, the picture is old and very crappy, so it might be just some, actor posing as Hitler or whatnot. And so yeah, of course, theories that Hitler didn't die in the bunker have circulated ever since probably the end of the war. There are theories that he escaped to Argentina or Neuschwabenland in the Antarctic and whatnot. But at least this is and of course people have written books about it and stuff, but nobody seems to know for sure. And I don't think this is gonna clarify it anymore. But let's just take a look. Okay, before I forget. And yeah, it says that he changed his name to Adolf Schrittelmeyer. Yeah. So I guess if somebody, some investigative journalist might go to Tunja and find out if such a person actually had lived there, and what he did, and if he has surviving relatives and whatnot. So anyway, here's the document. So Unclassified Confidential is from 1955, and it was microfilmed in 1963, and it was released last week, I believe, along with the JFK stuff. And anyway, so yeah, basically it claims that Hitler escaped there and the CIA was investigating the whole thing. And if this is true, that he managed to escape, it sounds a bit like Hitler was controlled opposition, since the Mossad certainly, went around the world, especially South America, hunting for former Nazis to, make them pay for their war crimes and all that crap. So you think they'd be very interested in finding Hitler. And of course, it's possible that Hitler simply managed to cover his tracks so well, maybe already in 1955, when this Citroën guy told the CIA or whatever, maybe he had moved on somewhere else, maybe he had still, friends in high places, and so it could be maybe he had many allies in South American governments, and they managed to hide him, or maybe later on he went to Neuschwabenland or to the moon, who knows. So it's certainly possible, but it's still I don't know, I'm skeptical that he could have just been hiding in place like this, if he's Hitler, and he was the world's most famous and hated man, I suppose. Of course, this whole thing could be a rumor, maybe the Citroën guy just wanted some money from the CIA, and if he had been promised hey, if you can find clues about Hitler, we can pay you, and he came up with this shit, or maybe there was some other former German National Socialist there, and he sort of embellished the story that it was actually Hitler. Maybe the Adolf Schrittelmeyer was somebody else. who knows? Um, or maybe this whole thing was like a hoax or something. Maybe back in the 50s, maybe it was sort of like the operation to kill Osama bin Laden in Pakistan. Was it in 2011 or whenever, or 2010, whatever? So because, well, yeah, I don't think that they actually killed bin Laden, but maybe they wanted to, like, make some false flag or who knows what, to attack Colombia. So they manufactured this story, and then they might actually, send some strike force with this excuse to get rid of somebody else who was living in Tunja in Colombia. But then they decided against it, maybe something like that, who knows. And also it's sort of curious, why did they release this information now, like the CIA? Like maybe it's sort of like one possibility is that maybe this is just some rumor or whatever, or maybe it's not, and maybe Hitler was there, but then he managed to escape and they didn't find him again. So maybe the reason this was published now is to, like, because the Antifa are so excited about punching Nazis and all that shit. So if they hear like, oh no, Hitler escaped justice, now they want to, this is trying to, like, rally them up even more, and to make them attack the evil alt-right Nazis even more. Maybe there's like this sort of reasoning behind this release now. I don't know, or maybe it's somehow just to distract from looking at the JFK files. But well, I'm looking at this now instead of the JFK files, so maybe it works. But I'm pretty sure there are many, like, people looking at the JFK stuff and trying to figure out if it actually, how much of the relevant information is up there. But, well, whatever. Let's get back to this business. So I am sort of skeptical. Like, maybe this is all true. Like, in the sense that the CIA had this informant who told them this story, and maybe Citroen even he believed. Well, supposedly he had his photo taken with Hitler, so I suppose Citroen knew the truth, whether the guy was actually Hitler or whatnot. But maybe the CIA wasn't sure, so they just archived this thing, and like, yeah, maybe it's Hitler, maybe it's not, but this guy is sort of questionable. And anyway, like, if this Citroen guy was former SS, why didn't the Mossad catch him? I don't know, like, he's a former Nazi, and they're all war criminals, so maybe, I don't know. But anyway, I wanna comment something on Hitler, because I sort of still hope that he escaped, just because, well, why not? Because I'm not like, I don't really adhere to the meme that's going on nowadays that says Hitler did nothing wrong, because he clearly did something wrong. He lost the war. But certainly I think that Hitler and the National Socialist Germans, they have been treated unfairly in the annals of history. Since, yeah, I do think they, did committed some atrocities and did some bad stuff, certainly, but so did the Allies, so has any kind of nation ever that went to war. And I just think that after the war, because of course the winners write history, and well, the Nazis lost, so that's why they are treated with such contempt nowadays, because the winners of the war, both the capitalist democratic West and the communists, both of them apparently hated the Nazis, so they wrote the history to to downplay the atrocities committed by the Allies and to embellish the atrocities committed by the Axis states. That's how I see it. Because like, there was the Nuremberg trials and all that stuff for the, evil Nazi war criminals to bring them, to bring them to justice and tell the world about all the evil stuff that they did. But why was there no war tribunal for, Americans for bombing of, like the firebombing of Dresden or dropping nuclear bombs in Hiroshima or Nagasaki? Or, well, that's obvious because they won the war. So it doesn't really, like, that sort of war trials don't really mean anything. It's just basically theater. And of course, like, have communists, like, commissars and whatnot, ever have to pay for their war crimes or like crimes against humanity? Maybe some have, I don't know, but at least you don't hear about it as much as about the, evil Nazis and the Nuremberg trials. So yeah, nowadays there are certainly many people, like some in the alt-right and even further right, who sort of idolize Hitler, and I can understand it, but still I don't think, because, well, in the end Hitler was just like, even if his motives were pure, I don't know what his actual motives were, because it's very difficult to say, because very few people talk about Hitler honestly. Mostly it's, all of these people who have been told that he was the most evil person ever, and then there's the others who think that no, he was the greatest person ever. So it's very difficult to find middle ground. But anyway, I don't think it's very good to like idolize him so much, because in the end, he, like, even if he had good intentions, he still lost, and Germany suffered for it, all of Europe suffered for it, white people suffered for it, Japanese people suffered for it. So yeah, it's certainly good to like learn about history and some of the stuff that the National Socialists in Germany achieved. Like, I do think they achieved some good things, and I can very much relate to the fact that many people nowadays sort of look up to, like, it's still a significant, like a minority, but there are still people who sort of look up to the National Socialists, such as the Nordic resistance movement that I discussed in my previous video. Because, well, the Weimar Republic in Germany, before Hitler came to power, it was of course this hive of scum and villainy, of degeneracy and whatnot, and unemployment rate was really high, but still I think there were these rich people who could afford any kinds of degenerate activities and whatnot. And when Hitler and the National Socialists came to power, they ended that, and I think they pretty much ended unemployment and brought general morality to Germany and whatnot, and they got rid of the international banking cartels and multinational corporations. At least that's my impression, and I think that's the impression of many people nowadays who have, let's say, a more favorable view of the Nazis than than the TV tells you. So, and of course, when you look at the West nowadays, it is very much resembling what the Weimar Republic was, which is, well, it's understandable that people want somebody sort of like Hitler to fix things. But then again, maybe we shouldn't emulate the National Socialists too much, because, well, we know what happened. They lost, and then we got like 70 years of this crap that we have now. So maybe we should look at the good and the bad that they did and try to learn from it. Because, like, I don't know whether it was had the Axis states won World War II, if the world would be a better or a worse place, since, well, it didn't happen. We can only speculate, and what would have had to happen differently to change history for them to win and whatnot. So it's pointless to speculate about that, but at least I don't like the world that emerged after the Second World War, because the way I see it is that basically Coca-Cola Company, McDonald's, Starbucks, multinational corporations won, the banksters won, and Federal Reservists and whatnot, and of course communists won. And I'm not in favor of any of those groups. And of course I'm not in favor of the very modern version of that sort of liberalism, which is of course this, LGBTQPI stuff and transgenderism and whatnot. And so yeah, I very much can understand why people look to Hitler as some sort of alternative to this, but you should still remember that, like, even though Hitler might symbolize like an alternative to this liberal modernism, this nihilistic way of life, but he was just a man who failed in what he was trying to do. So yeah, he's not like, I don't think he was the avatar of Kalki or whatever. I don't buy any of that. Like, sure, it can be fascinating to speculate about crap like that, but it's still, yeah, it's better to try to focus on the facts and not some, pipe dream mythology stuff. But yeah, I do like my main point, I guess, with this, speech or whatever, is to, like, I do want to see the National Socialists and Hitlers being treated fairly when it comes to history. I think they did some good and bad stuff, like pretty much every society, like even, Soviet Union. I'm pretty sure you can find some positive aspects to it, although overall it was of course horrible for well, all of the peoples, not just the Russians who were under Soviet rule and stuff. But yeah, well, of course, like nowadays communism is doing pretty well in the hearts and minds of many influential people. So anyway, but that's another thing. But yeah, I don't know whether this CIA document, I just, let's say my gut feeling is that, there's some alternative motive, ulterior motive to this stuff. And I don't know, like maybe Hitler escaped the bunker in Berlin, but I don't know. I question this, but like, yeah, if he died, he did, and the CIA knew about it, it still sort of puts question on his character, and maybe that's like the reason for releasing this document, to make, all these, alt-right people who like Hitler and stuff, to make like, yeah, Hitler was, he was a coward or whatnot, or he was a, traitor to Germans. Maybe that's the point of this. I don't know, but well, it is an interesting document nonetheless.